Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our monthly webinar, Beyond the Field. I'm your moderator, Amanda McLean, the Farm Management Specialist here at North Dakota Farmers Union. The purpose of these webinars, as you know, is to bring you timely and relevant information for helping you make decisions on your farm and ranch operations. These webinars are held the third Thursday of each month at 10 a.m. Central Time, and you can find the recordings by searching YouTube North Dakota Farmers Union. A few housekeeping tips before we get started on today's webinar is, again, everyone is muted, but at any time, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat or the Q&A, and we will have time at the end of today's presentation to answer those questions directly. Lastly, I would like to encourage everybody to take our exit survey. Thank you for those that have continued to do that. By taking those, that helps to build the content of what we're going to do for each month. And with that, today I would like to turn it over to our special guest, Brandy Laframboise, the Farm Program Director with the State FSA Office of North Dakota. Brandy has been with the Director of the ARC and PLC, Price Loss Coverage, Crop Disaster Programs, Non-Insurance Crop Assistant Programs, which is NAP, and Farm Records. Brandy has been with the State FSA Office since January of 2025. She has also served as a county executive director in North Dakota for 5 years. She has been with the FSA agency for over 26 years. Her and her husband currently live in Findlay, North Dakota. With that, Brandy, I will turn it over today for you.
Good morning. Thank you, Amanda. I do appreciate this opportunity to talk about the legislation often referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act or the Working Families Class Cut Act. And this cemented some of the farm programs through 2031, including the main farm program, ARC PLC, with that opportunity to increase base acres, along with a portion of these factors that will affect ARC PLC have or will be adjusted moving forward. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is referred to as OBA. Things have started happening over the winter, and we are in the middle of the notification stage, and we're inching towards those base allocations being finalized. The OBA was 870 pages. It was enacted on July 4th of 2025. This authorized the ARC PLC programs for 2026 through 2031, along with modifications to components of the 2025 ARC PLC program. Those modifications will continue through 2031 program as well. It also provided that one-time opportunity to allocate an additional 30 million base acres nationwide in crop year 2026. These additional 30 million base acres will be implemented for use during the 2026 program year and will be based on the 2019 through 2023 eligible planting history for each farm. Existing base acres and yields will not change. So in North Dakota, we are completely done with our history dig. This was a direct result of the county offices getting the job done when we asked them. We started this process in the middle of December, and we finished it right around the beginning of March. Some counties were shorthanded. Some were still running other programs such as LFP, so their workload really had no wiggle room. And the neighboring counties really stepped in and just helped. North Dakota was very fortunate. We led the nation in progress. We had just over 12,000 holes to fill, which were created by recons that had to be manually traced back to what was actually planted in the dirt. In order to be eligible for an allocation, the farm needed to plant an eligible covered commodity one time in 2019 through 2023 and have cropland acres on the farm. There needs to be free acres on the farm, acres that are not already covered by a base acre. The 5-year average planted or considered planted needs to exceed the current base acres. If the above criteria is met, then the allocation will be based on the ratio of the 5-year average of planted and considered planted acres. If the nation exceeds the 30 million, then the allocation will be completed on a ratio so that the 30 million base acre allocation is not exceeded. This was the timeline and FSA has that we have been operating on. We are in the middle bubble, the 90-day notification period. It began on June 1st and goes through August 31st. Because this was a nationwide process, we really have been at the liberty of other states needing to get the job done so we could move on to the next step. One of the biggest things that producers, owners, or operators will have noticed in this process is county offices cannot complete recons or do farm transfers. If those were allowed, we would constantly be creating more holes, and those are what we have been filling when we started back in the middle of December. The owner notification was sent via postcard. The original allocation summary was based on May 15th data. We are about halfway through that 90-day time frame for owners to fix anything that is wrong with their history. County offices can still process certain corrections needed for the past or for 2026 during this time. After that 90 days pass, our system will be locked until the 30 million additional base acres are allocated. Will recons or transfers take place after this? That is the biggest question we're getting in the county offices. And sometimes we think there may be a slim window in September for that to happen, but there is no guarantee. Once these base acres are allocated, then the ARC-PL sign-up will take place. The landowner notification began on June 1st. This is a picture of the postcard that each owner was sent. There were 2 ways for them to be sent, either via email, those went out on June 1st, or they were sent in the mail the end of May. Each owner has the methods that they can obtain their letter or the base allocation summary, and they're able to do that using their login.gov account or by directly contacting their local FSA office by August 31st. Here are the 2 base allocation notifications. The original summary is for owners only, and this was based on the May 15th data. Often people ask why owners and not the operators, and this question is really easily answered because the base acres stay with the land, so they are the landowners. They are the land's base acres. The current summary is for owners, operators, and other producers who are listed on the farms, and this data is current and it is real-time FSA data. Here is the login.gov account view that a producer will see. The original summary is on the left with the lighter green bar at the top, and the current summary is on the right with the darker green bar. Remember, operators and other producers will only have the current option, so you're going to want to select that darker green bar. If you have representative capacity, this is the screen you are going to see, and you will have the option to view your own and all of the entities that have signature authority for by selecting each one of them, then clicking the View Allocation button. So if it's yourself, it's everything that you own, operate by yourself as an individual. If it says signature authority, that could be if you're in an LLC, if you're in an LP, a general partnership, even a trust, it's going to say that. So you would want to select that one, and then you would be able to see everything that that trust LLC is involved in. If you go down to the next one, it's those FSA power of attorneys. So if you had power of attorney for a landowner and you were the operator, or if you had it for your mom, your dad, brother, sister, anybody, Once you select on that, that is who you would be able to see. So you have to select who you want and then push that view base allocation and you will get their direct information. What are the actions needed by the landowners? Verifying that their history data is correct is the number one thing. For the majority of landowners, there will be no action to take. This really is an automatic allocation if the farm is eligible. The notification letter that the owners received along with that notification summary gives the history of the allocation process, the actions a producer may exercise, the August 31st deadline to take an action. It reminds them about maintaining the existing base acres. And finally, that the 2026 ARC PLC election and enrollment will follow, and it will be a completely separate action. Here is the base allocation summary. In the upper right corner is a green box. If it's green and it says yes, that means the farm is eligible for base acre allocations. If that box is red, then it is a no and the farm will not be part of the base allocation. If we move on down, you're going to see the farm acreage history. It lists the crops on the left-hand side. In the middle, it says status. Eligible means that that was the initial planted crop. That is what we are saying is what is going to be a part of the allocation. If you go down to subsequent, that is if there were two crops planted on the same dirt during the same land, during the same time frame. That would be your subsequent acres, and we have to choose if we're going to use those subsequent or the eligible. If we go all the way over to the far right, it says the 5-year average. This, on this example, shows corn. The 5-year average is 541.82. If we look at soybeans, over their 5 years, they planted an average of 826.3 acres. And each crop is listed and their allocation. If we go down to the next part where it says A, that is the 5-year average of all total covered commodities. So in this example, it was 1469.54 acres. You're going to see that little A behind it, and that is used in the calculation, so that number will directly move below. The next one, which is labeled as B on that side, is your eligible non-covered commodities. In this example, they did not have any planted. This is where your edible bean acreage would be. This is where your alfalfa acreage would be. Anything that is a planted crop that we said, hey, it's an eligible non-covered commodity, but it's not one of our covered commodities. That's where that little number is going to go, the average. If we continue through the base allocation summary, we're going to go down a little bit further and it says the actual allocation calculation. So right there, you're going to see is that 5-year average, which comes directly from the top, that 1469.54. What was the 5-year average? Then it is going to add in the lesser of B or 15% of the 2026 effective cropland and CRP acreage. So if you had a 100-acre farm and you had 15% of that, that would be 15 acres. That would be the most that would get added in. Otherwise, if you only had, say, 10 acres of eligible commodities, we would only include the 10 acres. This then equals your eligible cropping history. We move over one more thing to the right, and it says 2024 base acres. This is those base acres that are already on your farm, along with any CCC 505 reduction acres. And those CCC 505 reduction acres are normally reserved because of CRP. When you put land into CRP, you put those 505 base acres into kind of a little savings account, and we hold on to them until that CRP contract expires. So that is the next number. So we're going to take that eligible cropping history, minus those base acres, and that gives you your potential allocation of 119.13 acres. We then move down and we continue the process. So we're going to say either the effective acres, which is that same number that we used above. What is the effective cropland plus CRP acreage? This one, it is 1558. We're going to minus off what our 2026 base acres are. And in North Dakota, we don't have any unassigned base, so we're not going to see anything in that column. And then it's going to say it equals the 2026 base acres without allocation. So in this situation, there's 207 acres that do not have base on them. We're going to continue to the last part of that allocation, and it shows us 207 base acres, 0.61. Those are the base acres without, or the acres without base. Or the next part is a calculation. It's that potential allocation minus those unassigned base acres. Once again, we don't have those in North Dakota, so that should always be 0, is going to equal 119. So you get the lesser of. So in this example, we're looking at that 207.61 or the 119. So this farm will get 119.13 acres allocated to it. Those 119.13 acres will be divided based on this allocation crop percentage. So you can see below in this example, corn is about a third. So of those 119 acres, you're going to have about a third of them put to corn. Soybeans is right around half. So you're going to have right about 60 acres to soybeans. And then the remaining would be to wheat, that's 6.9 acres. So verifying that 2019 through 2023 reported acreage is accurate is an extremely important step. This will determine how many acres and the ratio for what that new allocation will be. So if you're looking at your allocation summary that we looked at and you see that there's corn on there for 100 acres and you're like, in 2023, I planted 150 acres of corn. Go verify this with the county office. For owners who do not have the history, they are going to have to work directly with their operators to verify this accuracy. FSA took all of this information directly from our FSA 578s, which is the annual acreage report. In North Dakota, this process is normally completed by July 15th for producers every year. Owners can request a correction, or they can late file previous acreage that was never reported to FSA. If a producer certified corn and now says, oh no, it was soybeans, we do not allow those. We only allow corrections, which means that it was reported correctly on the map. It said corn on the map, and we accidentally loaded it as soybeans. Or if it had never been certified to begin with, means you've never walked through our doors, we would allow you to walk through now with verifiable documentation to show what that crop was. Subsequent acre designations in North Dakota is very limited. We only have a little over 400 farms total. Subsequent acres are needed when the producer needs to make a determination when an initial crop was planted, it failed, then a new covered commodity was planted on the land. If the owner wants to keep that initial crop, then no designation is necessary. The initial crop is automatically included. If they want that subsequent acreage to count in their allocation history, then they need to designate it on the CCC 868 by August 31st. Producer who planted, so as an example, if a producer has planted corn, it froze, which means it failed, then soybeans were planted, the owner can choose to use the corn or the soybean allocation in their history, that acreage for their allocation history. If they want to keep the corn, they actually don't have to do anything. If they want it to be soybeans, then they do need to go into the county office by August 31st and designate it on an CCC 868. Opt out is the other option that is available by a producer. One owner per farm could opt out. And by opting out, they are certifying that all owners agree that they do not want to have base allocations. We have discussed this amongst ourselves and we've discussed it with other producers. We've discussed it with our national office. And we don't really see a reason why a producer would want to opt out of this allocations, why you wouldn't want more base acres on your farm. If you do have those questions, feel free to reach out to your local office or even give me a call and we can walk through your scenario to see if it would be something you would want to do. If there is really no action needed because everybody really is opting into this program. So why do we have base acres? They really are for our agricultural risk coverage and our price loss coverage programs, which are the real farm program, the main farm program that supports the safety net of farmers. So the ARC PLC program will have changes for 25 and 2026. The acreage risk will still include both options of the county or the individual, and they will run through 2026 through 2031. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, like we said earlier, was enacted on July 4th. The ARC PLC rules were published on January 12th of 2026, and it did include changes for both 2025 and for 2026. These are the 22 covered commodities that we have had in place for years, and they will continue with this program. And these are the covered commodities that are used in this base allocation process. North Dakota has 17 of the 2022 covered commodities as base acres. So what are the changes for 2025? And these are changes that will be put into place really with the calculation of how the payments are going to go out. There is no action that is needed by the producers. This will automatically happen. And for this year only, they're going to get to pick that higher of PLC or their ARC County payment. So instead of making producers come back in the office and re-sign up, they just said, hey, you're going to get the better of. So we can walk through these changes. So the effective reference price, it used to be 85% of the 5-year Olympic average. That has been increased to 88%. So all of these increases are actually going to make it more likely that a payment could happen, which is what we really need with the farm program to be that safety net. The reference prices were adjusted and they had not been adjusted since 2014. Also, in that, they are going to allow them to be adjusted automatically at the end of 2031. The guarantee, that ARC PLC calculation, it used to be locked at 86%. Now it's going to be 90%, which once again gives you a guaranteed higher benchmark revenue. ARC PLC was never able to increase by more than 10% from the previous year. That did get changed as well to 12%. The payment limit increased. It was previously 125 and that has been increased to 155 for 2025. And there is inflation allowed on that, so it can change throughout, or that 125 was locked in at the beginning of the old farm bill and remained. This new option is going to allow that to increase. As I said earlier, you are going to get the higher of PLC or ARC County payment. So it doesn't matter if you signed up for PLC on corn. If your county's ARC County payment is higher than that PLC, you will get ARC County. And then it also updated the HIP calculations, which is really something that we do behind the scenes, and that is your um, irrigated versus non-irrigated for certain crops. We update the percentage. For 2026, we will have a new election and enrollment period. We are expecting that in the near future after these base allocations are allocated. It is quite possible that we will know because it's going to happen, probably after September, that we will know what was grown, what was harvested, and that probably is going to be a pretty good advantage to know whether we're going to go into ARC PLC or ARC County, ARC IC, or PLC per crop. Ron Haugen has already made the NDSU extension calculator, and he will continue to work on that and do updates to it. And then we'll probably do another webinar with Amanda once we get closer, or we know that the sign up is near the end as well, just depending on our time frame. Here are some national ARC PLC websites if you want more information. This is where that MYA, those effective reference prices, and the county yield prices can also be found. If you scroll down on it, there's a button that says ARC PLC program data, and then you can go back and look at previous and the current year, our determinations as we go along. Normally, they're updated about the middle of the month. Sometimes it's a little later, sometimes it's a little earlier, but this is where you can get that up-to-date information saying, hey, what does it look like they're forecasting for an ARC County payment? What does it look like they're forecasting for a PLC payment? USDA and FSA has a variety of different resources. Farmers.gov has many good sites on everything. So please get familiar with that. Go out there if you have more questions. This is also where you can find our program fact sheets. Farmers.gov is interactive and the producer has to sign up and use an account. You can use farm records out there. You can also look at your maps. And a new feature this year is being able to view or print your acreage reports from there. Here is that login.gov that we talked about, and this is where you can go in and you can get certain program information, and this is where you can get that summary. You do have to create a login.gov account. Identity is verified, and then you have to have a USDA customer record. So if I were to sign up and I wasn't an owner and operator, even if I went in there, I'm not going to be able to see anything because it is specific. If you remember back to what you have a signature authority for. Gov Delivery, get our newsletters and also our text messages. This is my current information, so if you have anything that you guys want to talk about or you need to reach out to me, please feel free to do it. Any questions out there, Amanda?
Well, thank you, Brandy. One question that came to mind. How is prevented plant acres going to be adjusted or calculated with the base acres?
So if they are a covered commodity, they are considered at 100%. So if you had 50 acres of corn planted and you had 50 acres of prevent plant corn, it would be considered 100 acres. So there was no ratio or percentage used for prevent plant. If it was planted or considered planted, it bears the same weight.
Okay, thank you. I know we've discussed this has been the first major base acre update since the early 2000s. I guess why is that kind of considered a major opportunity, or why has it taken so long to update these base acres?
So for a lot, it's directly comes from legislation. So over the past farm bills, they have allowed once in a while to update the yields. They allowed us to add oil seeds back in the early 2000s, but you didn't actually get more base acres. If you were going to add oil seeds, you had to take some of your barley base, your oat base away, and then convert it to those oil seeds. This time around, it's going to actually give us 30 million more base acres. So we're not going to touch your current. Nothing on those are going to change. We're just going to give you more. So if you used to farm 500 acres and now you've done some new breaking or you've changed your rotation and you only had, say, 250 of those acres covered by base, now it's going to allow you to get additional base acres, which just gives you more protection on your farm if you need to be, if these programs run out of payment for you guys each
Awesome.
year.
Um, are the new base acres used for the 2025 ARC and PLC calculations?
They will not be. These new acres will go into effect for 2026 only and then go
Okay,
forward.
awesome. If anybody's having problems getting into their USDA account, um, should they reach out to you or just go into their local FSA office? What's the best way to get some help with logging into that account?
They should go into their local FSA office to look at that login.gov account or your farmers.gov account. You know, it is a one-time thing. So if you signed up, say, using an old email, and now you have a new email, it will still want you to log in using that old email. So that sometimes can be tricky, but reach out to the county office. And then even on farmers.gov or that login, they do have some Q&As on there too that can help you walk through those processes.
Awesome. Um, so I feel another question. So as if we've okay, sorry, rereading, trying to rephrase this,
You're okay.
paraphrase this. We feel that the acres that have been recorded are right over the last 5 years. Just sit back and wait until we get a letter from them on base if there's any differences. Pretty much, right? For this,
Yeah,
there's not really much
that's
to do.
correct. Yep, if you're saying that, hey, those acres are all recorded correctly and we don't have subsequents, you're going to just sit back and go, yep, we're already in. We don't know exactly when the allocation process will happen. We know that, August 31st is the end. We suspect our computers will be locked shortly after that. Then they will do the allocation and they're going to have to look across the whole nation and say, hey, do we have 30 million base acres to give? It'll go out as 100% if we don't exceed it. If we don't, we'll end up having a nationwide percentage on that. Once those base acres are allocated, I am not 100% positive if we'll send a letter, if it'll be an email, a postcard, or if this allocation summary that you got, you're going to just do the proration and say, hey, we got 100%. We're going to do the math, and that's what we're going to get.
Perfect. And then, yeah, once they've just sit back and wait, and then when ARC and PLC opens, then you can go
Yep.
in and do that for
Yep. And sign up
2026.
for the year.
Yep.
Yep.
Uh, is there some reasons why a farm might not qualify for more base acres?
So a lot of it is due to what was planted out there. So if you have a 500-acre farm and you had 250 base acres plant or 250 base acres right now, corn and wheat, and you still plant edible beans, you still plant alfalfa on the other 250 acres, it's going to not give you an increase because you did not plant more than what is already being covered on that farm. That's one of our number one reasons. The other one is that you didn't plant the crop. So if you didn't plant a covered commodity, and this is not as a likely for crops for us because we do have 17 of the 2020 of the 22 covered commodities. But if you were, say, an alfalfa producer and you planted alfalfa only from 2019 through 2023 on that ground, then you would have not planted an eligible commodity. So therefore, you would not be eligible to participate with the increase in base allocations.
Brandy, I guess kind of going off of that, what if out of those 5 years they only planted 2 years or 3 years of an actual edible or eligible crop? How does that work then?
It goes into that 5-year average. So even if you only planted, say, 10 acres of corn one year, you would still get that 5-year average of the 10 acres. So it would be 2 acres. So that would come across and it would say that you have a 2-acre average of corn, even if you planted it only one year.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think we've answered all of our questions that have come in. Again, some important dates. Make sure you go in and review your base acres to make sure that they're right. You have till August 30th to do that. And once that happens, ARC and PLC should be open sometime this fall. We will definitely have a recording or a webinar on that if Brandy wants to, and we'll probably invite Ron to go over his calculator. Again, if you have any questions or troubles with your account, go into your local FSA office or reach out to Brandy. She'd be more than happy to help you if there's something specific, or your local FSA office guys and gals that are there. Again, this recording is available on YouTube. Just search this one and many of our other monthly webinars. Our next webinar will be August 20th, Adding Value on the Farm, Value Added Producer Grant Overview with some of the state options and the rural development options of value added. So with that, we thank you everybody for joining us today and hope you join us next month and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.